Good evening, everyone. I'm Eliza Cava, the Director of Conservation at Audubon Naturalist Society, and I'm the runner of this speaker series called Conservation Cafe, which allows us to showcase amazing conservation professionals and thinkers and doers and artists and how they are making our environment healthier for people and for nature. So thank you for joining us tonight at this special Conservation Cafe, which is also the presentation of our 2021 Taking Nature Black Environmental Champions. And we are so honored to have so many of our champions here in person with us, alongside me here on the screen. And you'll be seeing some amazing videos that we've made of them and have the opportunity to ask some questions. I want to take a moment and reflect on both what is conservation, what is space, what is nature, um, who has access to it, who is safe in the out of doors. The out of doors includes our streets, who is safe on our streets. And I want to thank you all for the energy that you brought to our conferences and that you'll bring tonight with our awards ceremony. And just on behalf of Audubon Naturalist Society, with our vision to make a larger and more diverse community who protect and love nature in the Washington, D.C. region, thank you everyone for being here tonight. And I will turn it over to our incredible artist, Dr. Karen Wilson Ama Achefu.
Good evening, good evening, good evening. Thank you, Eliza. It's so nice to be at another Conservation Cafe. And so let us begin. Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on, march on, march on to victory. Is one and proud, is one black and proud, is one. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Karen, and thank you, Eliza. Welcome everyone to the 2021 Environmental Champions Award for the Taking Nature Black Conference. I'm Caroline Brewer. I am the chairwoman of the Taking Nature Black Conference, and it is my honor to welcome you to tonight's celebration. We have so much to celebrate tonight. We are celebrating excellence. Excellence in serving the Black American community, excellence in serving humanity, and excellence in protecting the natural world. And we have the special honor of being able to celebrate it tonight as part of ANS's Conservation Cafe, as Eliza explained. So I'd like to extend a special thank you to Eliza for hosting us and allowing us this very special platform, which gives us more time than we've ever had to honor our champions. And it also, for the first time, gives you the chance to speak to them and to ask them questions and engage. So thank you so much, Eliza. Thank you to Lisa Alexander, our Executive Director of the Audubon Naturalist Society, for her leadership and her support of our conferences each year that have just continued to grow and thrive. So thank you, Lisa, for being the one who has made these conferences possible. I'd also like to thank our sponsors for also helping us to make this possible. We appreciate you, and we celebrate you as well tonight for your support. And of course, we want to thank our champions who are here with us tonight. You are going to be in for a treat when we introduce their stories to you in video. I want to say that a big part of our celebration tonight is about legacies, and the legacies that have been with us for some time, in addition to new legacies that are being created, as well as legacies that have just grown and evolved. So tonight, you're going to get a real good look at legacies in the works. We want to thank our champions because they are doing work in disciplines all across the environmental spectrum. Their careers in forestry, geoscience, urban gardening, their careers in conservation, legislation, climate change, advocacy in rural communities, connection to the natural world. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy our presentation of our first class of environmental champions.
Roll and I are credited with being the sponsors of that bill and having written that bill. But the reality is that the EJ communities themselves wrote that bill. We were scriveners, if you will. And that's why we say it's a bill written by the people for the people. We're hopeful we'll be able to get it through the Congress and put it on President Biden's desk. Climate change is a life and death issue, the wide-ranging crisis of our lifetime. There is no issue more important than preventing and mitigating climate change and speeding our transition to a clean energy economy. The best science says we need to completely stop adding climate pollution to the atmosphere by 2050, if not sooner. That is why I am fighting for bold action now. For far too long, the federal government has turned a blind eye to the impact of toxic pollutions on entire communities. If we are going to achieve true justice in our country, we must continue the call to center frontline communities in our policy making. I am here because the stories of those advocates changed me fundamentally, and now I am even more committed to ensuring that my colleagues cannot and must not hide from these harsh truths.
My rural roots remind me every day as to why I got into this. How can I be part of making access to green space available for people of color equitably? I grew up in a very rural area that was surrounded by pine forest. One of the main economic factors or drivers in my small town was a plywood plant, a sawmill. And so as I grew up in this rural town and a very avid 4-H'er, I looked for the connection to the business of forestry, the land ownership, and the private hunting clubs, for example, that did not exist in the Black community. My focus was always on the business side And how could the Black community be closer to land ownership? And so I sit here in the U.S. Forest Service, where I know that demographic-wise on diversity, Black women are less than 2% of this 30,000 employee organization. And so my voice is a voice that is perhaps, it shows up less in rooms, but I also believe that representation matters. And so I don't hesitate to put my values in the room. And that's the question I continue to press on my colleagues who are experts and who are trained in this space. Let's not just focus on where there are trees. Let's think about the possibilities and reimagine the forest that doesn't exist, the forested spaces.
And so we did a lot of regional organizing over the last 20 years. And I think what we didn't know we were doing was largely helping to invent in this country through practice more than anything. But it was climate justice, you know?
A lot of Turkey Creeks. You know, there's Africa Town over in Mobile Bay, Lower Ninth Ward, and Plaquemines Parish and others. And my work and our fight has extended beyond Turkey Creek to communities that have these remarkable American essential stories that they value, but the world doesn't, and particularly the local pro-development oligarchy that we live under in Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Texas.
And so we created our own regional philanthropy to make small grants to community-based groups. We started Bridge the Bridge the Gulf project.
As far as the debt that is owed, I think it's really simple, and it's deliverable. It's deliverable now. Deep and permanent self-determination. Again, thank you everyone who's in attendance here who is one of those folks doing the kinds of work that I've mentioned and really being a living answer to so many prayers. Your work is so important, not only the work itself, but the growth of this sphere of our population. Of our species, right? It's very, very important.
The numbers are needed, and we want students in the field, in the workforce, doing this type of work for years and years to come. And so what are some ways that we can draw them in? We came up with pearls, providing educational access to research and learning in geosciences. So if we take these branches of geology and we couple them with branches of earth science, then we have this term geoscientist. What we found is that in some instances, one, representation, they don't see people that look like them in the field that they want to pursue. And second, there's this chilly climate that they experience when they do try to pursue those types of fields, right?
It's just these small, seemingly small experiences that have really large impacts on everybody's future careers. We do want students to consider two routes. One, if you're going to look for employment, consider geoscientific employment. These trainings that we will fund will help you build your resume into that career. If you're so inclined to continue on to graduate school, we're also supporting that as well.
My story is one of building partnerships. I'm an educator in the Prince George's County Public School System. I'm currently an environmental outreach educator with the William Schmidt Outdoor and Environmental Education Center. I didn't start off as an environmental outreach educator. I started off at the high school level at Gwynn Park High School.
I had a group of students that were always interested in making a difference and making some type of change. And so there was a huge greenhouse, but it was not being utilized. We received a $30,000 grant to refurbish that greenhouse area. And that got the students fired up, and that led to other initiatives. Now I'm able to help build programs around the county that focus on environmental literacy, and getting students connected to careers that deal with the environment.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause to our first class of environmental champions. We are honored to have so many of them here with us tonight. I want you to know that Congressman Donald McEachin is involved in some very serious work on Capitol Hill right now. There's a marathon session of votes that are taking place. That's taking place from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. tonight. So he will be joining us, and we'll be on the lookout for when he joins us so he can give us his acceptance speech. But first, we would like to bring Derek Evans forward so he can give his acceptance speech.
Thank you. This is a very, this is a great group and network to be honored by. As I said earlier, during the Taking Nature Black Conference, you know, this aggregation of young people and younger people and elders in environmental careers, from academia to advocacy to on and on, you know, in government, is a really important, once unimaginable, and very important slice of this world and our country, which is Black people, you know, taking leadership and forging forward, you know, where stuff should be going, okay, and where so much of it should have been going so long ago. And, you know, sometimes prayers are answered late, right, but they get answered. And everyone here and everyone who's at the conference and so many others who just couldn't make it, but represent answers to those prayers. And I want to say that, you know, I'm really just a product of, you know, where I'm from, where I've been, and who I've been with. And so I got to give a shout out to, I mean, I'm gonna miss somebody, but Rose Johnson, who passed away about a year ago in Gulfport, Mississippi, who was really my mentor, the first African-American person who opened my eyes to the role that we have to play in environmental stewardship and renewal, as well as the late Pam DeShiel from the lower Ninth Ward, and Sharon Hanshaw from Biloxi, and others, and some living folks, some of whom are here now, Fred Tubman and others. I mean, I'm the new Jack, man. You know, I got a gray beard, but I mean, I know whose shoulders I'm standing on, and that's very important because I think inherently in the work that we do is there's an element of Sankofa, right, of looking back to find the path forward. You know, data is very important, but also there's this spirit of our zeitgeist, right, that needs to drive us, and it does in this work if it's to succeed. And the final thing that I want to say, and again, I'm accepting this award on behalf of Rose and the others that I mentioned and others that I didn't, including my 86-year-old mother, who once said, well, she said a lot of things, but one was that when folks make a circle that leaves you out or includes you in a way that you don't want to be included, you have to create a bigger circle that includes them. And what that in Turkey Creek has spelled so often has been, the best and the most comprehensive vision for a path forward that has very many, many stakeholders, including people who are normally at odds with one another at best and unknown to one another at worst. So we're just going to keep that up. I know that's reflective of the work that other awardees do as well and how they approach it. And the final point I want to make is that, sometimes we need to recognize that the one gift of our wounds is that it represents our selection to heal and to help others in the healing that's needed. And we have to be very mindful of that. We are wounded healers. Our communities are wounded healers, but it is wounded healers who carry a power and a might and an anointment that others can't. And to be a little bit humorous about it at a time now when everybody and their second cousin is professing to be an expert in environmental justice and social climate justice and so forth, and almost like trodden over those who have been in these trenches for so long. And I'm not talking about the up and coming rightful heirs to that tradition. I'm talking about posers. Maybe what we ought to do is have a better hoods and gardens seal of approval. To check some of that. But anyway, thank y'all so much. I'm delighted to be here with you.
Thank you so much, Derek. We really appreciate you and are excited to honor you this year. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to ask Beattra Wilson of the U.S. Forest Service to come forward next.
Hi, good evening, and thank you, Carolyn. I should have asked to go ahead of Derek. Derek, that was very eloquent, and congratulations to you. Love your work. I am thankful to A&S. Thank you so much for your partnership. I am accepting this award on behalf of U.S. Forest Service, where for 20 years I've been allowed to be a public servant in a space of urban communities through an urban and community forestry program that allows me to go out and engage some of our youth and some of our citizens who might not necessarily know about the green space opportunities around them, but also the careers around them. So thank you, Carolyn. You all at A&S have not just been a partner. You have really, truly been a key player as we have asked time and time again for the intentional platform you're providing through Taking Nature Black. You saw in my video, as a Black woman in urban forestry or in forestry or conservation in general, I know I'm not typically the majority representation at the table. So it feels really good to be on the screen tonight and to be celebrated, but to know that the conference that you all offer in Taking Nature Black has provided a platform that has engaged so many young people who we try over and over again to reach out to and communicate with. The work I do is on behalf of the U.S. Forest Service, the federal government, and I truly want to thank you for this honor. I'm humble, and Carolyn, against my wishes, I did not have to be in this space, but I truly understand what this space means, and I want to make you proud and continue to do what I've been doing in urban and community forestry. I also want to thank my family, my husband, my kids who are trying to keep quiet in the room next door as I do this late night conservation cafe. And I think my mom and my sister are viewing from Louisiana. So I want to thank them for tuning in. In the video, you all saw where I came from. And so being from rural Louisiana and landing in Washington, D.C. was not by accident. And so thank you. And I hope to leave and expect to leave every door and window open for the next ones to come behind me. And as I mentioned my family, I have to mention Southern University, who found me in rural Louisiana, supported me, scholarship, exposure, experience, internships, and I have had the opportunity to continue to work with this university who gave so much to me 20 years into my career. And so that's another piece of it. And I think that's what many of the champions on the platform tonight think about as we sit here, is the opportunity to be representation, but also engage and welcome the next generation. And finally, I just have to say, I had this quote I keep on my desk, Carolyn, and it goes, it's from Dr. King. And it says, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And I bring that quote up today because we've been asking for this space. We've been wanting this space. And when I say we, I mean the representatives in this Environmental Champions platform tonight. And you all have brought it through Taking Nature Black. So thank you. We celebrate you as well, and have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Beattra. We are delighted to have you as a champion this year and to be your partner. And we just want to thank your mom, Southern University, your entire family, your network, for helping to shape you into such a consummate servant of the community. We're just so appreciative of you. So thank you so much. All right. Next, we'd like Dr. Akua Awuku to come forward.
Hi, everybody. I'm just one of a group of three. And so we had decided earlier to work together to accept this award. So I'll let Dr. Candace Duncan speak.
Good evening, everyone. And thank you for allowing us to participate in tonight's cafe, as well as receive this award. So on behalf of the Pearls team, we would like to thank Dr. Evelyn Cooper for the nomination and the Taking Nature Black Selection Committee for the 2021 Environmental Champions Award. We are very grateful to the Audubon Naturalist Society for recognizing our efforts to recruit and retain women, underrepresented, and underserved minorities in the field of natural sciences, and more specifically, geo. The Pearls program is designed to provide education access to research and learning in the geoscience field and careers. And as we strive to continue exposure and showcase science to our underrepresented minorities, we hope that the Taking Nature Black and Audubon Naturalist Society will continue to support our efforts and those of others as we push science into this next millennium. So again, on behalf of the entire team, we are thankful for this award. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you to the Pearls team. What a terrific job you all are doing. You are blazing new trails in attracting young people to geosciences. And I just want to say thank you so much. We are looking forward to seeing the fruit of your labor as the years go by. So we look forward to seeing you at the next conference and other events. Thank you so much. All right. It's my understanding that Congressman Donald McEachin has been able to join us. So we're going to ask him to come forward to accept his award.
Well, thank you all so very much. It is such an honor and a privilege to be with you this evening. And I apologize, I'm in the middle of a voter marathon. So we're rushing in and out of House floor, casting our votes as the people of our districts would want us to cast them. But I just wanted to say thank you very much from the bottom of my heart for this award. You know, since I've gotten to Congress and I had the occasion to work with great people like Chair Raul Grijalva and work on this bill, the Environmental Justice Fall Bill, I have learned so very much. And I've learned it from the very people who are living the experience of environmental injustice. And to them, I owe a great debt of thanks for educating me, for taking me in, and for showing me what we need to do here in Washington to make lives better. And that is to empower our environmental justice community so that they can implement the answers and the solutions that they see fit, and not have Washington dictate to them anymore. And so on behalf of my team that's been working on this bill so hard, and I dare say on behalf of Chairman Raul Grijalva, who, but for him, I wouldn't be here and in a position to accept this award, I say thank you. I look forward to seeing you all on the hustings. I look forward to, sorry about that ringing. It's gonna ring like 3 more times. Okay, but I wanna say thank you. I look forward to seeing you all out there making this bill law, and the day that President Biden signs it will be a happy day for all of us and a better day for all of us, because we'll really be addressing the climate crisis because we'll be bringing justice to those who suffered injustice for too long. So thank you for what you've done. Thank you for what you're going to do, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Congressman McEachin. We appreciate you first and foremost for being willing to take time out of your schedule today to join us. I know you had planned to be a part of the Q&A session, and we're really grateful that you were willing to set aside that time, but we understand that you have important work to do. What's happening with the climate is the most important issue facing all of the world. So we're grateful for your dedication and your service and for your kindness in being a part of this program tonight. So we salute you, we honor you, and we thank you. And I hope the rest of the night goes along much more quickly.
Thank you. Y'all have a great evening.
All right, you too. Thank you. Okay, next up, we have an educator extraordinaire in Donald Bell, who's gonna accept his award.
Okay, thank you, Carolyn, and thank you to ANS, the Conservation Cafe team, and the entire Taking Nature Black team. On behalf of the William Schmidt Center, the Outdoor Education Center for Prince George's County Public Schools, I humbly accept this award. One of the themes that was mentioned earlier tonight was legacy. And if I can leave a legacy, it will be that in some role or some capacity that I've helped to cultivate and pollinate the environmental champion of 2025 or 2030 or 2040 and on down the line, and those that come after, because as was mentioned earlier, we're standing on the shoulders of those that come before us. And so I thank my God, I thank my family, my wife and the Bell triplets, and my school system family for working alongside me on so many of the environmental initiatives that are taking place in the county. All of the teachers that I work with day in and day out to provide opportunities for their students. I'm thankful to the PGCPS leadership, Dr. Goldson, Dr. White, Dr. McDaniel, Dr. Conyers, for allowing such strong support of environmental literacy within Prince George's County Public Schools. I travel all over the country, and when I describe the support that we have in Prince George's County for the environment, jaws drop everywhere I go, because they can't believe that there's an environmental literacy team of teachers and educators, and your mission, you get to do what I do on a daily basis. And so thank you for our school system leadership for that. And thank you to the Prince George's County community. I'm fortunate to be able to serve such a beautiful and diverse community every day. And the students that you saw in the video, they're the ones that motivate me and inspire me. And so, anything that I've given is returned 20-fold by their motivation and by their enthusiasm. And so I want to challenge everyone on this call tonight and on this meeting tonight to befriend an educator in your school system. It doesn't have to be a formal program, right, and have a fancy name. Make a friend with an educator in your school system naturally, and opportunities will follow to connect with students on a small or grand scale. It doesn't matter. And if there are any students and young people, I want to challenge you to be outside physically and mentally, be outspoken on environmental issues, and be outstanding in everything that you do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Donald. What a community you have supporting you. And I think that's why we see so much evidence of your hard work in what your students have been doing. And we look forward to seeing them at a conference and also to honoring them as an environmental champion. So thank you so much for all that you've done to support our young people and help them to become stewards of the environment. We need teachers like you, so I hope that people respond to your call to befriend more teachers. Thank you. All right, so we have another round of outstanding environmental champions, and we're going to ask our amazing videographer, Ben Israel, to go ahead and share those videos with us.
I'm really passionate about finding community, seeking community, working towards nourishing community, really wherever I go. My name is Kwesi Osaze Billups. I'm a Black queer artist from the DMV, and I am an urban agricultural manager and teacher. The work of Eden and my work here has been largely rooted in food sovereignty. I have been involved with the work of Eden since its inception. I started as a volunteer because my mom founded the garden, and so really working to build this project from the ground up has been a huge part of my upbringing. So Project Eden stands for Everyone Deserves to Eat Naturally. Really the name, Everyone Deserves to Eat Naturally, it's a statement, and it's a necessary statement because the area that Eden is located in, and that in the community that Eden serves, is located in a food desert. And so right now we're in Ward 8 of Washington, D.C., specifically the Southeast region, and the residents of this area are mostly Black. And this is a food desert, meaning that access to healthy and affordable foods is extremely limited. Project Eden is partnering with Faith Presbyterian Church to initiate a second Eden. The new greenhouse is smaller. There's been more intention and care taken to make sure that the space is able to be used efficiently. And I played a huge role in that by building site-specific garden beds. Political ecology is a passion of mine, and it's a core driver of the work that I want to do, the life that I want to live, and the community that I want to envision. Really, you want collards to be pulled before they begin to flower, and you want the flowers cut off so that it preserves the taste of the collards. As you get your hands in the dirt, there's always something new to learn, and there's always a different practice to incorporate.
The best academic experience you can have in a lot of our communities is go and sit on the porch with somebody who's been there for a long time. They can tell you things that scientists will not tell you because they haven't spent any time there. I found out that there were wastewater problems in Lowndes County. A lot of people were either straight piping, which was when they flushed the toilets, it was going out on the ground, or we found on-site septic systems that were not working. And although I've been a canary in the coal mine for 19 years talking about this issue, a lot of people thought that it was just a Lowndes County issue, but it's an issue across the United States.
Since 2002, I visited homes with wastewater failures at all levels. I first began meeting with people about this problem in the early 2000s as a pastor, a pregnant woman, and other members of the community were being threatened with or actually arrested for not being able to afford on-site wastewater treatment. Yes, it is a crime in this country if you could not afford wastewater treatment. I'm very, very committed to finishing what I've started as it relates to raising the issues of rural infrastructure and the fact that a lot of these communities have been left out. And I feel that we have to be embedded in the community. If you go into a community to work, stay in the community, spend time in the community. So for those people that can't understand my passion for Lowndes County and why I do what I do, is they only have to come here. That no matter what I do or where I go, I have to go back to where I'm from, and this is where I'm from. I'm an environmentalist because you cannot talk about the environment and not talk about health. You can't talk about the environment and not talk about how we treat nature. So part of environmental science is knowing about wastewater and how you treat it and how it impacts the environment, how it impacts the water bodies. All of that, I think, is connected. And that's why I'm an environmentalist. If you care about people and you care about land and you care about, God's creation, you're an environmentalist. And I'm very, very interested in what we do for 7 generations to come in terms of leaving a perfect place for our children to live.
Hi, my name is Pamela. I'm from Lowndes County, Alabama, and I live in a mobile home with my 2 kids. And I got raw sewage. I don't have no money on power. They charged me over $114,000 on a mobile home. They're falling apart.
Do you see that somebody that would take advantage of a poor family
as
criminal?
Yeah, it was sick. Yes,
it's
a criminal.
It's criminal.
Yes, they treated us wrong.
Pamela let us come in her house courageously. It was hard. She said, I want the nation maybe to help somebody else. A predatory lender made her pay $120,000 for a single white house that she's still paying for. She's in the Poor People's Campaign. She said, I have no place else to go but fight.
What's it like living without a septic tank system?
It's bad. And I don't like to see this, stuff running out on the ground like this.
I have to make sure that in Pamela's memory and for her children's future that we dismantle these structures that kept her trapped.
When through the deep waters I cause thee to go, the rivers of sorrow shall not overflow. That's an excerpt from a 1787 hymn that was found in Harriet Tubman's biography by Sarah Bradford. And it seems to be perfect as the theme for her life of always having to go through deep waters and knowing that she would be protected, that the rivers of sorrow would not overflow.
For Harriet Tubman, her ability to be in nature was a matter of life and death for her and for the people she was leading north to freedom. Many people, if they've heard of Harriet Tubman, they know about her career as a conductor on the Underground Railroad. They may know less about her reliance on and her mastery of her environment, which is the thing that actually made her such a successful conductor on the Underground Railroad. A familiarity with the landscape, of how you moved through woods and forests, how you negotiated waterways, always with a mind to keep your eye focused north, on the North Star, and on freedom. And she was able to maneuver through those landscapes multiple times, bringing out somewhere between 75 to 100 folks and making sure that they enjoyed the same freedoms that she had taken for herself in 1849.
There were rocky roads. There were forests through which she had to find food by foraging. There were the moon and the stars and the sunsets and the sunrises that guided her. There were moss-covered trees that helped her find the right direction. There would be the calls of birds to learn and mimic so that she could secretly and intimately with nature control the traffic of her fellow freedom-seeking passengers.
The tools of the trade were, how do you manage in wooded areas? How do you manage moving across waterways? How do you continue to find your way north on trails when there are no signs and when you can't stop and ask for help because you are either an escaped slave or you are leading enslaved people to freedom? So there's no help necessarily that you can count on. You've got to be able to do this successfully by yourself. And that's what made Tubman such a great conductor on the Underground Railroad. She had that mastery of the natural environment. She understood how it worked and was able to make it work to her advantage.
Harriet's legacy is a legacy of crossing rivers, hiking fields and forests, understanding the life-giving properties of trees. It's a legacy of friendship and kinship with birds. It's a legacy of the magical illumination of the constellations. And it's a legacy of intellectual and spiritual demonstration. And it's a legacy that began right here in our region. Harriet Tubman was never afraid to cross a river. Her experience, her skill, her intelligence in nature are all reasons why we are honoring her with our 2021 Audubon Naturalist Society Taking Nature Black Legacy Environmental Champion Award.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Please, a round of applause for that class of environmental champions. We are really, really excited about this next group because it was led off by our youth champion, Kwesi Osaze Phillips. And if you want to know more about Kwesi, just look up last week's edition of the Washington Post, a column by Cortland Malloy. But at this moment, we're going to ask Kwesi to come forward.
Good evening, everyone. I just first want to express how grateful and how humbled I am to be here and to be honored amongst such good company. I want to thank my mother, who is the founder, the current executive director of Project Eden in Southeast DC. Where we work to instill a sense of agency and sovereignty around food in the local community, which is located in a food desert and which is predominantly Black, and which has historically not had anyone there to tell them that you can take up tools yourself. You can look into your own front yard and find means to sustain yourself, to sustain your family, and to sustain your community. I also want to thank Xavier Brown for being a mentor and a friend and a teacher to me in the garden over the years, and for nominating me to be a part of this panel tonight. I also want to give a shout out to my friend, my best friend Corey, who is in attendance tonight and who has been a real supporter of me for so long and has also contributed as a volunteer to the work of Eden. But speaking more about the role of the environmentalist and the name, I've been thinking about the title champion, and I think that to distill it in its essence is to describe someone who thinks critically about themselves and about their environment and about their community and about their role in that relationship and in those relationships. And if there's anything that I can do, it's to humbly encourage everyone to think about your relationship to your food, your relationship to your environment, and your place in it, because we all have a place in nature. And so often we have so many distractions that kind of strip us away from our role in the world that we live in. But I think it's important to get back to our roots and to understand that we all have agency, and we have a role to play in preserving our environment, in making use of our environment, and being sustained by it as we sustain it. And so just to close out, I want to share a quote from the intersectional feminist scholar and theorist, Patricia Hill Collins. She said that if you are not at the center of your work, then why are you doing it? And I just want to stress that we should all see ourselves as central to the work that we do, and as central to leaving a legacy to the people that will be inheriting the earth from us. So thank you again to ANS and to Ms. Brewer for inviting me here tonight. I'm really honored and humbled to be a part of this program. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kwesi. And thank you to Xavier Brown as well for nominating you for this award. We searched high and low, far and wide for a youth champion, and we were so delighted when Xavier came back and told us about you. And obviously, so many people recognize how dedicated you are to your work in the community. And so we're just grateful to be a part of your universe now. And we look forward to seeing you at a Taking Nature Black conference and some of our events. So thank you. All right. So we now have a video acceptance from Catherine Coleman Flowers, who was recently chosen to be on the White House Environmental Justice Advisory Committee, which is meeting tonight at the very same time. So she has a very good reason for why she wasn't able to join us, but she was kind enough to make a video to let us know how grateful she is to be a part of this ceremony.
Good evening. I'm sorry that I'm unable to be with you this evening. However, I am very deeply humbled by the acknowledgement of my work. I speak on behalf of myself and also for your acknowledgement of my friend, and who also was a co-organizer in this work, Pamela Rush. Because of Pamela and others like her, I am here to do this work, and I'll continue to do this work in her legacy and carry on and hopefully inspire other Pamelas to step forward as well. Thank you for recognizing my work by presenting me with the Environmental Champions Award. I'd like to thank the Audubon Naturalist Society. I also like to thank the Taking Nature Black Planning Committee, and of course its chairwoman, Caroline Brewer, for this honor. Thank you again.
All right. Thank you so much to Catherine for preparing her acceptance and making sure she could be a part of the program with us today, at least by video, and also for accepting the award for Pamela Rush's family. We learned about Pamela's story through Catherine's work and through her book, Waste. If you haven't gotten a copy, I encourage you to get a copy. There's an extraordinary story of how Catherine brought this really tragic situation of sewage that exists throughout rural areas and even other parts of the country in families' yards. And you know, it's contaminated the soil, and children don't have a safe place to play, or any place to play really. And we are grateful to Catherine for bringing that to the nation's attention and for bringing about change for families like Pamela. And we're grateful to her family for being there for her over the years. So our final award was awarded to Harriet Tubman, our legacy champion. And I have been thinking about Harriet and her relationship to the environment for at least the past 15 years. And it really began when I saw this child draw a picture of Harriet Tubman that was surrounded by greenery. And it made me think more deeply about her connection to the environment. And all those years ago, when I was thinking about it, so were other people thinking about it. And one of those people happens to be the resident historian of the National Parks Conservation Association, and he is also a member of the Board of Trustees for the Audubon Naturalist Society. You saw him in our video, and I want you to know that we have a longer version of this video that we'll be sharing on YouTube. But right now, we'd like to ask Alan Spears to come forward and accept this Legacy Champion Award on behalf of the Tubman family.
Well, Carolyn, thank you. And my thanks to the Audubon Naturalist Society. And I would start out by saying, Kwesi, I am a DC native. I was born and raised east of the river, and you will know what that means. And so I'm grateful for the work that you and your mother are doing with Eden. It is critical, critical work. I am honored to accept this award on behalf of Harriet Tubman and her family, but I must admit, I am not a family member nor a descendant of Tubman's. I nonetheless claim her as an honored ancestor, and that's because Tubman's causes were family and freedom, and her commitment to both was unbounded by concerns for personal safety, wealth, or fame. That basic humanity is a part of what made her great. Had she been a man and been born a different race, her legendary exploits might have netted her large statues in prominent public places, perhaps on horseback, maybe even wielding a sword. But Harriet Tubman had to wait to have subsequent generations embrace and appreciate her legacy. And there is something that is incredibly fitting in that her monument, literally on Maryland's eastern shore, is so largely comprised of the landscape on which she toiled and over which she risked everything to give others everything: freedom, family, and hope. Carolyn, thank you very much, and my thanks to ANS.
Thank you, Alan. We so appreciate you for all the ways that you support the natural world, and certainly for your work at the National Parks Conservation Association to tell the stories of people like Harriet Tubman that have yet to really be told in the ways that they should. So we are deeply appreciative of you being here and of the work that you've been doing, and we look forward to seeing you at future conferences as well. All right. Well, now comes a very special time for this year's awards ceremony when you, the audience, get to participate even more deeply by asking our honored recipients the questions that have been on your mind, the questions that might have come to you as you've watched their stories unfold on video. So we are going to ask you to go to the Q&A section and put in questions that have come to your mind. Don't be shy.
So the first question is a question for Alan and Caroline, I think. Is there any scholarship and or writing or articles about Harriet Tubman as a naturalist? Great piece on her, meaning the video, and I agree. Any resources you can share with the audience that to learn more about Harriet Tubman as a naturalist?
Well, Eliza, there are a couple of really good biographies of Harriet Tubman, including one by my friend Kate Clifford Larson. And so it's really hard to disentangle Harriet Tubman's career as a conductor on the Underground Railroad from her ability to move effectively in the natural environment. I'm challenged by the word naturalist, though, when it's used in association with Harriet Tubman, because for me, the word naturalist has always been someone who kind of wandered around in the natural environment and looked at stuff and sometimes killed stuff and then looked at it. And what Harriet Tubman was doing was a life and death matter. And so the reason why she was such a great naturalist, why she had such a great mastery of that environment, was because she had been born and raised on Maryland's Eastern Shore. And the quick answer, but the best answer, is that Tubman's early life in that area near Dorchester County did prove that African Americans and enslaved people had much more franchise and ability to move throughout that landscape. She would be hired out to work on other farmsteads. She would have to go down to the Broda store to pick up supplies for the people that owned her. And when she did that, she might stop off to visit with relatives. She might go through the woods or walk the roadways or talk to people who were working in the canal system. And she got to learn that environment as a young girl, as a young enslaved woman. And that was the thing that actually made her such a successful conductor on the Underground Railroad. That and just her incredible bravery, her sense of leadership, and her ability to lose all sense of danger for herself and her life when it came to liberating members of her family.
Thank you so much, Alan. That's so it sounds like, just in a specific answer to the question, that you'd recommend some of these great biographies that have been written of her. But I love the way you described her ability to move through the natural world as just being so fundamental to how she became what she was. Thank you.
And I just to add, Eliza, that the Maryland Department of Natural Resources was super helpful to me. I've read both of the major bios that Alan spoke about, and but I also spoke with a forest ranger who works at the Harriet Tubman Underground Railroad Visitor Center that Alan had such a role in helping come into being. There is a lot in that visitor center about her legacy of being able to master the natural world and her environment, and to use it so effectively to help get herself to freedom and so many others. So I would recommend also the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Blackwater Wildlife Refuge website, which gives us a real good background on the kind of wildlife that's there now. And as Alan has said, it's really largely unchanged from what it was during Harriet Tubman's time. So quite a few resources. We can put something together, and when we send out the video, we can include links to those resources.
Thank you. Our next question is to Derek Evans from Pastor Gaines. And Pastor Gaines says, though God called me to serve in Southeast DC, I was born in New Orleans and raised in St. John Parish. As you know, this area is Cancer Alley. And in fact, I have lost 2 younger sisters to cancer, and both worked in the oil and gas industry. Are you doing any work in that area, and how do I connect with you? Thank you for all you are doing, and blessings.
Thank you, Pastor Gaines. I noticed when reading your question that we are both mutual migrants between the Gulf Coast and DC. Back in the mid-70s, I lived in the Randall Highlands neighborhood of Washington, DC. I've lived on Livingston Road. I attended Campbell AME Church in Southeast, which of course was close to where Frederick Douglass and Harriet Tubman had their encounter when she was passing through with a cargo. So as far as Cancer Alley in New Orleans, you know, I think as the video piece that was shown pointed out, you know, I returned home from Boston to focus squarely on Turkey Creek. And even before Hurricane Katrina, I recognized that Turkey Creek was part of a constellation of communities, many Gulf coastal communities that were very kindred in terms of their challenges, as well as their maybe assets, you know, the remaining seeds with which they might recover and renew. And it was really Katrina that led to the founding of the Gulf Coast Fund for Community Renewal and Ecological Health. And you may be familiar with a MacArthur fellow named Dr. Wilma Subra from New Iberia, Louisiana, and other folks who over many years have had Cancer Alley as a focal point, of their work, and that work really does continue. One of the things that came out of the Gulf Coast Fund experience and really the importance of relationships and relational capital, for us across state lines, excuse me, and across environmental issues, was that we were able to capitalize on those relationships and community-based wisdom to launch, among other things, something known as the Bridge the Gulf Project. And so I would direct you to the Bridge the Gulf Project, which is a community journalism web-based project where quite a number of folks doing the work in St. John and St. James Parish, which you specifically asked about, is there. I think in particular of contributors Karen Savage, Sharif Foytlands, the Louisiana Bucket Brigade, and others. It's one of the most horrible and embarrassing unfinished legacy business that this country has, as far as fence line communities along the Mississippi River, where it's just, you can go there and you can see communities surrounded 300 degrees by petrochemical plants and waterborne petrochemical transfer vessels and so forth. And on top of the fact that 30 odd states drain through the Mississippi River into those parishes, into New Orleans, into south of New Orleans. And although I'm over in Mississippi, that's part of the larger Gulf Coast ecosystem and human, both naturally, ecologically, and human. It's a part of the, we joke that this is not the Black Eyed Peas South, this is the red beans and rice South, along the Gulf Coast, which in some ways is very analogous to Appalachia, I suppose, where everybody does know that to be a geological, cultural, social, political, historical continuum. And we think about it in good ways and not so good ways as such, but the Gulf Coast was never really afforded that unity of perspective. And we really tried to build up with that after Katrina. And that's how I've become as familiar as I am with the great work that people do in New Orleans. And you can reach me, try Bridge the Gulf, do the Bridge the Gulf project would probably be the easiest way.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. So we have a couple more questions, and there's one more for Derek Evans. But I wonder if in order to help expand and give all our panelists a chance to speak, would anyone like to reflect on a question that an attendee has asked that I'm not exactly sure where he's going with this question, so I'm going to leave it to you all to interpret. But he asks, is there a middle ground between Black conservationists and Black developers? And I was reflecting on this question and how to ask it, and I think that the attendee may have been thinking about the excerpt from Turkey Creek that had a little tiny piece about a developer in there, but I don't know. And maybe it's a question about Black wealth and access to wealth, and when that might come from land development versus conservation. So I throw that out there to any of you to speak about the way it reflects to you. Or sawmills that employ a lot of Black people, and how is the forest conservation done around that sawmill, for example?
I just say quickly, although to remind you, I'm coming from Forest Service, and so there's traditional forestry, but my specialty is urban and community forestry. That's what I do. On this, in the place of developer and conservationism, is there an equal ground? I guess, we're looking at a lot of that right now in urban communities specifically, as we look at the disparities in affordable housing, and we also look at the disparities around environmental conditions and the lived experiences of many of our most vulnerable populations. And so I do think that there is an opportunity to engage, although there has to be some negotiating point, but with the community's sustained well-being at the heart of it. So what may be lost in profit may be gained in a different level of prosperity, meaning that the health and wellness and empowerment of the community. And perhaps as a public servant, one of my focuses is to try to help the community come into a place of leadership where they can advocate for themselves through some public support and federal assistance, for example, but connecting them with partners, and then also not just financial assistance, but data assistance, and helping them in the long term and how to engage a developer, or how to engage a planning commission, and helping them help themselves. And so some of that, I guess, as a public servant, I think there is absolutely an opportunity to connect. There may be similarities in their lived experiences from the Black developer and the Black conservationist, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone has a one-track mind. I think that we have to still approach anyone as if they are looking to be part of this community's well-being, and not necessarily just coming in focused. I think that's where we are in urban community forestry. We can't just focus on the trees. We have to engage those residents in those communities.
I'd like to add to that, if I'm on, am I on? Yeah. You know, that's a very good question, and a relevant question, and one that will never go away. And it's broader than just Black folks. And I think that, why don't we look for a moment at where the most affluent white people, or the most affluent people in our country live, and what is the balance that they seem to have struck between their development needs and their, frankly, almost normalized, natural, not only enjoyment, but ability to avail themselves of more and not less of the original natural environment around them. In fact, it's part of what makes them want to live where they live, along with their built resources, if you will. And that might be one good place to start, to move us towards the notion that balanced development is possible. Problem with urban areas, and particularly in very low income places like along the Gulf Coast and different areas of the country, it's not balanced from the very beginning, because people who decide at some point in history to value a place or a space for what wealth can be extracted from it, whether it's mining or whether it's petrochemical production or whatever, don't tend to see the people who have been occupying the place, who are part of that habitat. And more often than not, we all know it leads to conflict that's frankly avoidable. Just today in the city of Gulfport, after Turkey Creek was listed on Tuesday as one of the American rivers, 10 most endangered rivers in America, the mayor of Gulfport instinctively, impulsively sounded off with this very factually challenged and rhetorical tirade about development and dollars and all of this stuff that's he's basically perpetuating, whether he knows it or not, a fight that has a different path, and it has to do with people coming together to make the best decisions collaboratively about what they have to work with, as far as their challenges, as far as their built environment needs, and the protections and the sanctity and the usefulness in an urban area, right, of where what should be forested and reforested, what should be wetlands or restored wetlands. And that's a huge challenge on the Gulf Coast and in any coastal area in the face of climate change. And so there is a balance, but I think what the first part of that balance is to balance the conversation.
If I could briefly add to that.
Please, and for time, I'm going to ask Kwesi to be our last panelist to respond to this question, but please do.
Well, yeah, I just wanted to briefly piggyback off of what Mr. Evans was saying, in that the question asked about a middle ground between developers and conservationists or naturalists. And I feel like there is definitely a relationship there, but as Mr. Evans stated, that relationship is one of power, and the power is imbalanced towards the agents that come into a community or an environment looking to extract the resources and exploit the natural wealth of that environment. And so I think that the question is less is there a middle ground? Because there's definitely a relationship that's playing out, and more a question of how can we empower people who have the interests of the residents and the beneficiaries and the stewards of an environment. How can we empower those people and the people who have their interests in mind to be on equal footing and to have greater sovereignty and greater stake over what happens, and over what happens in their environment, over how it's used, and over what value and what use is made of it. So I think that's an important question, but it's important to contextualize and kind of frame that relationship in the way that it plays out. So yeah.
That's right.
I just want to make a point, because of Kwesi's work and his mom's work with Project Eden. When you get a chance to read the Washington Post article, you will see that developers are threatening the work that they have done there for the last 10 years, to build a garden, to employ more than 100 young people there. And that particular spot is a spot where 10 years ago, 9 or 10 young Black youth were shot and 4 were killed. And so when no one else was paying attention to that area, when a lot of people turned away, Kwesi's mom, Pastor Cheryl Gaines, decided to plant something there. And what has grown there is invaluable. We see it in the manifestation of Kwesi and the good work that he has done and that he will continue to do now that he has graduated college. And so development is threatening that work, and it's threatening legacies like that all over the country, and particularly in low-income Black communities. So it's a very important question that we have to deal with. Thank you, Kwesi, for answering that, and thank you, Derek. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for your contributions to tonight's program. We are so excited that you could be here with us and to help us to celebrate these remarkable people. And I love what Alan said about being an ancestor of Harriet Tubman, because that's how I see all of the environmental champions, that you're all children of Harriet Tubman in some way. Her legacy is so large. And especially for the times in which she lived, to see the work that you're now doing across so many disciplines, I think honors her life and continues her legacy. So we just want to thank you again for being here, for being a part of the Taking Nature Black community, being a part of the Audubon Naturalist Society universe. And I'd like Eliza and our executive director, Lisa Alexander, to close us out with final remarks.
I am just awestruck by tonight's environmental champions. Don't they take your breath away? The legacy and leadership of these amazing, hardworking people who testify and interpret and legislate. They are truth tellers and trailblazers and teachers, community organizers and game changers, scientists, inventors, and justice seekers. These champions make me humble, they inspire me, and they make me optimistic about the future of our region and our planet. And I have to say that in addition to these wonderful champions, I have to thank Audubon Naturalist Society's inspirational optimist in chief, our own Caroline Brewer, who brings Taking Nature Black to life year after year. And she is our North Star who helped bring this wonderful ceremony together. So now I'll turn the microphone back to Eliza to send us all home.
Thank you very much, Lisa. And thank you also, Caroline. Caroline is the chair of Taking Nature Black, and I'm the chair of co-chair of Naturally Latinos Conference, which is our sister conference. We ran both conferences, one in December, the other in February this year. And one thing I want to show is how much we appreciate our sponsors. So I'm going to share my screen and let you see, again, our sponsors, many of whom sponsored both conferences. So thank you so much to our sponsors for Taking Nature Black in particular right now, and also most of you sponsored for Naturally Latinos as well. So we really appreciate you making this work possible. And thank you to our panelists. Thank you to our champions for joining us. Thank you for making this such a special Conservation Cafe. We have recorded this and we will be making the recording available so that if your family members didn't get a chance to come tonight, you can definitely share it with them. So we really appreciate you all joining us. And so finally, thank you. In addition to this Conservation Cafe, you can see recordings of our past virtual Conservation Cafes. They are just on so many amazing topics. Last month's speaker was Valerie Proctor, who's a member of the Piscataway Conoy Nation, upon whose land I stand right now. And there's just so many more great speakers. Some of our speakers tonight have actually been also speakers at past Conservation Cafes, so you can hear them at more length. And if you, audience, know a great speaker for Conservation Cafe, please contact me. I will drop my email in the chat as we wrap up. And with that, I thank everyone and wish you all a good night and take care.